It's been called the robo-debt of very small business. During COVID lockdowns, grants provided a lifeline for sole traders. Suddenly, they were hounded by the government to pay it back. Many can't and won't.
The government, the big body, comes in and takes a bit more money out of the small man's pocket.
It's the COVID grant the government wants back.
Having this debt, what they're calling a state debt, hang over you, and you've got 3 weeks to pay it.
And it could cost these people their livelihoods.
It almost feels like robo-debt 2.0.
During COVID lockdowns, the state government handed out micro-business grants, many worth $15,000 to businesses with an annual turnover between $30,000 and $75,000.
It was a lifeline, absolute lifeline.
But 3 years later, the government wants its money back, demanding small business owners repay the grants.
I'd have to close shop, to be honest with you. I'd have to close up.
We approached New South Wales Premier Chris Minns about it 2 months ago, and he wasn't aware.
They've simply received a bill in the mail from Revenue New South Wales, and they're under a lot of pressure to pay back that money.
I'm happy to look into them, but I don't know the circumstances off the top of my head.
I mean, I can appreciate Premier Minns is a very busy man. However, I think he needs to put a stop to this bloodbath of recklessness that is being unleashed on the community.
We've been attempting to contact the Premier, attempting to contact just people who can help, who can possibly help.
Did you ever hear back from the Premier, Chris Minns?
No, not at all, which is disappointing. It's not nice to feel like you're not being heard.
Emil, Steve and Grant spoke to A Current Affair earlier this year. The government dropped its demands for Steve and Grant to pay back the money they received, but Emil still has to cough up the cash.
I received a letter just before the last story went to air, probably about an hour and a half before it went to air, saying, sorry, we've looked at your position and we've decided, after we've subtracted this and this from your assessment, that you actually fell just below the threshold.
Emil's earnings didn't reach the $30,000 threshold, so he has to pay it back. But the music industry was one of the first to shut and last to reopen during the pandemic.
The irony is that Service New South Wales is telling you that you didn't make enough money at the time to receive their help.
And now 3 years later, they're trying to take advantage of that disadvantaged, vulnerable position that they've actually put me in. In that year of COVID, we were restricted from working. Of course your income's going to be low.
Amanda runs a small fitness studio in Wollongong, south of Sydney.
I fully understood it as they were reviewing the legitimacy of my business. Then months later, over a year later, I got a first email to say that I'd put in a fraudulent application, which was a bit of a shock, and that I owed $15,214.
Amanda's business was closed for 7 months. The government determined Amanda fell about $1,200 short of the $30,000 earnings threshold. Now she has to pay back every last cent.
I remember the blood just drained from my head to my toes. In fact, I felt really shaky. And I remember my mum just going, Taylor, are you okay? I just said, you won't believe the email I just received. I was blindsided.
When do you want to see?
Had Taylor known the grant was a loan, the singer says she wouldn't have applied.
This is the email that I got in April last year.
Mm-hmm. And it says here, we have determined that you are not eligible for the funding you received.
That is correct. Payment made as a result of an incorrect, misleading or fraudulent claim.
Did you commit fraud?
Of course not. It makes me feel like I'm a criminal, which I'm not.
So why are these hardworking Aussies being targeted? We put the question to Premier Chris Minns once again.
Premier Lauren from A Current Affair, just following up on the micro-business grant I asked you about some time ago. Did you manage to get your head around the situation there?
Have you got a question about it?
Yeah, you were unaware of what I was talking about last time. Did you make yourself familiar with the topic?
Well, look, I'm aware that during COVID, there was 63,000 grants given to New South Wales businesses to keep them afloat, to keep their employees afloat during the lockdown of Sydney. That amounted to about nearly $800 million of taxpayer money.
Why are some of those businesses being asked to hand back the money now?
I understand that this was made clear when the funds were provided to New South Wales businesses that they would be potentially subject to audit at the time. I understand that there's a review that Service New South Wales will do for individual businesses as well.
If only it was that simple, Premier.
If I knew I was going to be in this situation, there was no way I would have went down this road.
Bill was floored by his big bill. The videographer received the $15,214 grant. Now he has to repay $18,279.
They wanted a tip.
I'd have to close shop, to be honest with you. I'd have to close up.
On top of this, Bill's also looking after his ill father.
He's been diagnosed with leukemia, so I'm caring for him, and sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, and then trying to run the business at the same time.
Hasn't been easy.
No, it's heart-wrenching. This is the last thing I needed.
It's tough, isn't it? And Service New South Wales tells us it's now clearing Emil's debt and he's working with Amanda, Taylor and Bill to find a solution.